I would now like to introduce you to your moderator for today's event, Tim Cook, Vice President of Publications for ICBA. You now have the floor. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Michelle. Good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar called The Truth About Email Encryption. This webcast is sponsored by DataMotion in conjunction with ICBA Independent Banker Magazine. My name is Tim Cook, and I'm Vice President of Publications for the Independent Community Bankers of America, and I'll be moderating today's session. Thank you for joining us today. We'll get started in just a few moments, but while we wait for some others to join us, let's cover a few housekeeping items. Well, we have a question and answer session at the conclusion of today's webcast. However, we will have a question and answer session at the conclusion of today's webcast. However, you don't need to wait until the question and answer period to submit your questions. In fact, we encourage you to submit your questions early. We will try to answer as many questions as possible during the webinar. Due to the large number of participants today, however, we may not have time to answer everybody's questions. For that reason, contact information for our speakers will be provided on your screen should you have any questions that you wish to ask them following the webcast. There will also be times where we will ask you some polling questions. We will pose questions in the slide window of your screen. Please submit those questions in the same slide window and not in the Ask a Question box. We'll report the results of the polls during the webcast for you. Finally, this webinar will be archived for 3 months on the ICBA and ICBA Independent Banker websites, so you can access it there after today's live presentation. The archived webinar will be posted within 24 hours. I think we're ready to kick off the presentation now. As I said, my name is Tim Cook, Vice President of Publications for ICBA. Our speakers today are Michael Osterman, Principal and Founder of Osterman Research, and Bob Janicek, Chief Technology Officer at our sponsor, DataMotion. Osterman Research is an analyst firm in the messaging and collaboration space, providing research, analysis, and other services. Michael is a frequent speaker on the topics of messaging and web security and other issues involving collaboration. DataMotion, our sponsor, is a vendor in the email encryption market. Bob, a co-founder of DataMotion, has over 20 years of security and software design experience. He is the architect, designer, and original developer of DataMotion's managed information delivery platform. For more information on today's sponsor, go to www.datamotion.com. And now I'll pass things off to Michael to begin today's presentation. Michael?
Well, Tim, thank you very much, and thank you for everyone who's here today. I think that we'll be able to provide you with a unique perspective on encryption and maybe get you to thinking about how encryption can really boost your business and provide you with some real competitive advantage. Just a little bit more about Osterman Research so that you know where we're coming from in all of this. We have a very strong emphasis on primary research, and we'll be discussing some research that we did specifically for this webinar here in just a bit. The company was founded in 2001, and we're based near Seattle, Washington. So let's get right into it. We all know that email is still the king of communications in the workplace, if you will. People are using a variety of new communication tools. Things like social media, collaboration systems, instant messaging, text messaging, and so forth. But email continues as the primary way that people communicate. For example, in a survey we did late last year, we found that the average employee sends 43 messages and receives 123 emails per day. And they spend close to 2.5 hours a day doing something in their email client. So a lot of people are heavily reliant on email as the primary communications medium that they use, both internally and externally. We also found in that same survey that email use dominates all other forms of communication like voice, instant messaging, social media, to the point where all of those other communication media combined don't equal the amount of time spent doing something in email. Email is also the de facto file transport mechanism in almost every organization. If you need to send an attachment to somebody, you have a lot of options. You can use a file sharing system based in the cloud. You can use FTP. You can use physical delivery and so forth. But in almost every case, email is the primary way that people communicate. That's the primary way that they will send files to one another. So email is an absolutely critical component for just about any organization's communication and content management capabilities. And the reasons are pretty simple. Email is ubiquitous. Virtually everybody in the workplace that sits behind a computer has an email address, and because email is standards-based, it's very easy to send an email to somebody. You can send an email or an attachment, and with almost 100% assurance, understand that they will receive that content. You don't have to go through a special system. You don't have to be subscribed as you do with social media. You don't have to be a follower or a friend. You can just send an email and be pretty much assured that they'll get it. Also, email is very easy to use because of tools like Outlook and so forth. Email is very, very simple to use, and so it really has become the primary way that people communicate. The fundamental problem with email, though, is that it's inherently insecure. If you send an email, you send an attachment through a normal email channel, that basically is almost like sending a postcard. Anybody along the way can read it, and because an email can go through up to, let's say, 30 hops and be stored on a number of servers along the way, the content that you're sending through conventional email is very insecure. Clear text email really will allow just about anybody to intercept that content at any point along the path. And if you're sending sensitive information, customer information, things like Social Security numbers or financial records or whatever it happens to be, all of that content can be captured along the way by anybody, and you probably won't even know that it's occurred. Also, users fairly often make mistakes. Because of the type-ahead features and things like Outlook, you can be sending a message off to one person and it accidentally gets sent to somebody else because they have a similar name. I know personally I have received purchase orders from companies and so forth that I wasn't not supposed to be the recipient of, but I was anyway. So it's a very common mistake that happens in just about every company. And so the bottom line here is that clear text email really has fairly limited utility in the financial services industry because you absolutely have to keep sensitive data private because of regulatory requirements and so forth. And if you do violate those regulatory requirements, either those imposed by FINRA or whatever regulatory body you're subject to, you can incur some very significant penalties. 46 of the U.S. states, for example, currently have data breach notification laws, which are based to some extent on California's SB 1386. And so if you do violate those laws, if you do expose sensitive data somehow through clear text email, you can incur very significant penalties. Also, there are some fairly serious business and PR ramifications for exposing sensitive data. It's not just the direct penalty, the legal obligations you face. It's the potentially lost business. It's the bad PR. It's the customers who move their accounts from your bank to your competitor who hasn't had the violation and so forth. So email is a very useful tool, but it has a fundamentally critical flaw in that the content cannot safely be sent in clear text email. Now, in terms of some examples of email breaches, I won't go through all of these, but these are from Privacy Rights Clearinghouse. And you can actually check these out yourself. The leading example here is an employee of Rocky Mountain Bank sent an email that had an attachment containing very sensitive information on over 1,000 customers of the bank. They sent it to the wrong address. Also, the file would never have been sent in the first place, and compounding the problem is that the wrong recipient got it. The next example here, LPL Financial. They mistakenly sent an email attachment to clients with confidential information for 38 other clients. And so email is very easy to use, and because of the sheer volume of email that's being used in most organizations, mistakes will happen. And it's very rare that somebody maliciously leaks this kind of data, but accidental leaks happen on a fairly frequent basis. And so it's absolutely essential that you do something about it. You can't just say don't use email because it's so critical to the way that people work and getting business done, but you do have to address the fundamental problems in email. So we're going to be running a poll here, and really what we want to ask is, are there instances in your organization in which you would like to use email, but you don't, simply because you don't have easy-to-use encryption that's readily available to you? And so we'll leave this poll open for about another 25 seconds or so, and we'll take a look at the results right after you're done. So if you wouldn't mind responding, we would appreciate that. And it's interesting, too, in terms of encryption. We have done research on encryption in a number of other industries. And one of the things we find is that in the typical organization, regardless of industry, there are about 20% of people that would be considered heavy users of encryption, legal counsel, HR, and so forth. But we have also found that if encryption were easy to use and readily available to anybody, it would be used a lot more. The kinds of information that today are sent in clear text that people might not consider to be confidential or that might be iffy would just automatically be sent encrypted if people had that capability. Okay, great. And why don't we take a look at those results? Okay, yeah, nothing surprising here. The vast majority of you said that if you did have easy-to-use encryption, you would use email much more, and there are instances in which you don't use it because you don't have that capability. So again, nothing surprising here. Lots of people would like to use email, but they don't simply because of the lack of good encryption available to them. So there are really a couple of ways of looking at encrypted email. The first way is to look at encrypted email as a defense. You can keep your customer data safe by allowing only email to go out of your organization that has been encrypted. You can satisfy regulatory obligations. You can protect the organization's reputation simply by maintaining good defenses for email, making sure that nothing leaves the firewall that hasn't been thoroughly encrypted. And bottom line here is that you mitigate the risk that you face from sending stuff in clear text. And so you can view encrypted email as a good way to defend your organization, to reduce your risk, to reduce your exposure, and prevent other problems from occurring. But you can also look at encrypted email as an offense, if you will. It does create new business opportunities. And it really can speed the decision-making for things like new accounts and loans and customer service and support and so forth if you allow customers to communicate with you and you to communicate with them through easy-to-use encrypted email. Another major benefit of using encrypted email is that it creates stickiness among customers. If you have the ability as a banking customer to communicate with the bank via encrypted email, to send files, to send loan documents, applications, and so forth, that is a significantly enhanced feature over what a lot of people can do today, and so it is going to create that stickiness. If you do have additional capabilities with your bank that the bank down the street doesn't have, it's going to entice you to stay with that bank that is providing the extra features, and we'll get into that here in just a moment with the research data. And bottom line is that customers are less likely to leave a bank if they have all of the features they need, all of the capabilities, and so forth. And encrypted email, the ability to communicate securely with the bank, is a key component of that. So we wanted to test the hypothesis. We wanted to go to just normal banking customers and ask them a few issues about the importance of encrypted email, what they can do today, what they'd like to do today, and so forth. We conducted 172 surveys with members of our survey panel, and we completed these surveys last month. So this is fairly fresh data. And what we found, first and foremost, is that there's a fairly serious disconnect between what individuals can do today and what they actually would like to do. Today, only 56% of individuals can communicate with their bank securely via encrypted email, but 78% would like to do that. So we found that basically 22% of the people that would like to communicate via encrypted email simply can't do it today because their bank doesn't offer that capability. In my own case, for example, I cannot do that. I won't mention the bank, but I cannot communicate with my bank via secure email. I'd like to be able to do that. And a lot of other people, as the data here shows, definitely would like that as well. And secure email with a bank is very important. For example, we asked, with which of the following providers would you like to be able to communicate securely via email? And as it turns out, the bank is the target, the entity with which individuals would most like to communicate securely, more than their primary physician or clinic, their stockbroker or financial advisor, their insurance agent, or their dentist. So a lot of people really want to communicate securely with their bank, and much more so than with a lot of other service providers that they deal with on a regular basis. So it's absolutely essential that banks look at this capability and look at the business opportunities that can be created, and then also look at the downside of not providing encrypted email. And in terms of the stickiness factor, we asked another question. If you could easily communicate with your bank via email with the assurance that your communication was highly secure, would it make you more likely to conduct business with them? Well, the vast majority of people said yes. Not a surprise. They want to use encrypted email, and if the bank offers that capability, the vast majority told us that it would make them more likely to do business. And so bottom line is that secure email with a bank would create really greater stickiness than it would with any other sort of service provider, more than their doctor, their stockbroker, insurance agent, and so forth. And so because banking is so critical to what we do on a daily basis, and it's become more critical over the past few years with the financial meltdown for many people, it's absolutely essential that you maintain good relations with customers and offer the capabilities that they need so that they can do more business with you. And also in terms of secure email as a differentiator, one of the things we found is that the ability to communicate securely with the bank is really a differentiator for banks. We asked if individuals could not communicate with their bank securely, but a competing provider offered that capability, how likely would customers be to switch? And as you can see here, 15% would probably or definitely switch to that other provider if their current one did not offer secure email capability. Another 32% said they'd consider it. So we're looking at close to half of the banking customers out there looking at secure email as a real differentiator in who they are going to choose as a banking provider. So we're going to get into another polling question here. We want to ask, in your business, in your banking activities, what's the biggest pain point in dealing with customers? Is it account inquiries, customer support, dispute resolution, loan applications, or is it something else that you have to deal with? And we'll leave this open for about another 20 seconds or so. Okay, we'll leave this open for just another 5 seconds. Okay, great. If we can close out the poll, perfect. Let's take a look at the results here. And those results should be popping up momentarily here. Okay, they don't seem to be coming up for some reason. Here we go. So basically we found account inquiries and customer support each at 26% is in terms of the biggest problems, dispute resolution at 16%, and loan applications at 23%. We've had it a little bit different in terms of what individual customers would like in terms of using secure email. We found, for example, that 74% of banking customers would like, or like very much, the ability to manage account inquiries through secure email. 67% said they'd like to manage loan applications using secure email. 60% would want to resolve disputes that way, and 42% would want to receive customer support. So, a little bit different than what we found here, but not dramatically so. Also, in terms of the capabilities for secure email, the things that people would really like, no surprise here. The vast majority, 4 out of 5 people said ease of use. And that's absolutely critical because you don't want to have to learn a complicated encrypted email capability, and because people might not frequently use it. Maybe it's only once or twice a month that they're actually using secure email with their bank. You need to make it easy to use so that they don't have to relearn it every time and require a lot of help desk support and that kind of thing. Also, the ability to confirm email or file delivery, again, is very important for things like loan applications and other types of activities for which people are submitting content. The ability to attach files, again, when you're dealing with loan applications or, in some cases even account inquiries, it's absolutely critical to have the ability to attach files, and also integration with mobile devices. We're seeing a lot of people use mobile now as their primary way of communicating with others, and so it's important to have that capability. And as you can see here, 50% of the people that we polled would like that capability. So in summary, encryption of sensitive content, and I apologize for the typo there, encryption of sensitive content is absolutely critical in the community banking industry, not only to satisfy regulatory requirements for the protection of data, but also to build new business opportunities. And you can view email, encrypted email, as a defense to satisfy regulations and overall to really mitigate the risk that you face. But encryption really can develop those new business opportunities that you might not have today in the absence of good encrypted email for your customers. And bottom line, encrypted email creates customer stickiness, and it will reduce customer churn simply because people want to be able to communicate with their bank that way more so than any other service provider. Okay, here's our contact information, and I'd now like to hand it back to Tim Cook. Tim, it's all yours.
Yeah, right now we have a presentation now with Bob with Data Motion. Bob, why don't you start with your presentation?
Okay, very good, Tim. Thanks. Actually, I had a couple thoughts on Michael's presentation. I think it was excellent. Michael, thank you. Some very good insight into the financial use of encrypted email and just the good ways that email can help, secure email can help in the financial world. One of the things that I just wanted to comment on was your example about email not being secure, and basically, I'll just go back a slide just to keep it on the title here. The reason we got in this business was because in the late 90s, we were delivering unlock codes to our customer to enable our software. They would download a demo, they would try it out. If they wanted to buy it, they would we would email them an unlock code to make it a live copy. Those emails were being picked and put on to hacker bulletin boards so that other people could download and unlock our software, and we were supporting people that weren't even our customers. And those emails had the words like password or unlock code in it, and it made it ripe for picking. Well, today, business email often contains the phrase, if you are not the intended recipient, don't open this thing. That basically distinguishes that email from all the spam and junk mail out there, that this is more important. So you have the same idea where you have keywords that can be picked off or searched that allows a hacker anonymously to harvest all of the messages of an organization. There was a case where in order for us to get into e-commerce and to deliver our unlock codes and such, we had to be secure. And I think today, if organizations really need to use email for business purposes, they need to think about the security of their organization and their relationship with their customers. So anyway, just moving forward then, I want to share a couple customer stories that are typical of secure email's use in the financial industry. And the first one is with a community bank. It's a small bank, about $300 million in assets. And like a lot of banks, they faxed and emailed confidential information to their customers, to the FDIC, to the Federal Reserve. These were traditional processes that are very time-consuming and expensive. And they needed a more efficient way to compete with their larger competitors, and also to meet their auditors' compliance requests. So, fortunately, they were introduced to our product by receiving a DataMotion secure mail from their auditors, and they liked the experience as a recipient, how easy it was for them to open those messages and reply to their auditors, and they thought that would apply to their customers as well. The customers were not technical, their board members were not technical, their other banking business partners weren't technical. So that was a key component, which actually your survey pointed out, where 81% of people thought that it should be easy to use as the most important attribute. So with a small IT department, they didn't want to add any more servers to their environment. They were looking for a cloud solution, and they implemented DataMotion Secure Mail from a SaaS. And that allowed them to exchange confidential information with their customers, the FDIC, the Fed. And as a result, their auditors are happy, their employees are more productive, and the bank is more profitable due to reduced costs and accelerated business processes. So that's a very typical case of the financial institution needing to implement secure messaging or initiate secure messaging out to their external users. Now, the next case I have goes one step further. Not only did they have the same need of converting expensive manual processes to secure electronic processes when they communicate out to their external parties, but they also wanted those external parties to initiate secure communications back to them. And so in this case, the Federal Credit Union implemented secure mail for Microsoft Outlook, and that allowed them with one click to send a secure message from Outlook that was very easy for their employees, and then also that very easy recipient experience. But also, as your online poll just showed a minute ago, Michael, with the biggest pain points of the financial institutions, at least on this call, one was account inquiries, and the other was customer support, both inbound requests. Now, this Federal Credit Union had staffed a call center to handle those type of requests, and calls are very expensive to handle. They go on much longer than they really need to. They also accepted inbound fax and requests by mail, physical processing. So what they did is to make this more efficient is they implemented our secure contact solution, which basically is it seamlessly integrates with their website. It runs on our SaaS, so they didn't have to add any more servers or hardware. And it allows their customers to initiate a secure message with attachments into the credit union. As a result, processing these electronic inquiries was so much more efficient, they were able to reduce their call center headcount by 3 employees. So then just finally, just a little bit about us. So we've been in the cloud secure email business since '99. When that was before they had the word cloud. It was called ASP, if you remember back in that day. And as a result, for the last 12 years, we've had a lot of feedback from customers on how to integrate more tightly with their business processes, how to integrate with their webmail, with their Outlook, Notes, GroupWise, various platforms. It has to fit hand in glove with their environment to make it as natural as possible for the users to engage it. Secure mail should be as simple as possible, then it gets used, and we've been refining that simplicity for the past 12 years. From an audit and security perspective, there's also a very high bar because secure mail is used to transmit Social Security numbers, credit card numbers, account statements, things that are regulated. So we've also had to refine it to those standards to meet all the regulations. And then from an operations perspective, we had to make sure that our secure mail allowed an organization to accelerate their business processes, to reduce costs, to make them more efficient and more scalable using fewer resources. So I think it's the combination of that ease of use, the auditing and security capabilities, and also the way that it fits in with business processes that makes the secure mail product very popular with our customers. So I invite you to visit us at datamotion.com for an on-demand demo, and to please contact me if you have additional questions. My email is on the screen. It's bobj@datamotioncorp.com. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Tim.
Great. Thank you, Bob. Thanks, Michael and Bob. Those are really great presentations. Feel free to send in your questions for Bob and Michael, and we'll try and get them answered during today's session. We do have one question that's come in from a bank. Relates to smartphones. It says, our employees are increasingly using smartphones to send and receive email. What can we do to secure emails from those devices?
Oh, yeah, Tim, this is Bob Jancic. I'll take a shot at that.
Okay.
So the people choose smartphones because they're so easy to use. I mean, with my iPhone, I don't even think I got a user's manual. I just started clicking on the screen and started to figure it out. So with secure email on one of these devices, for it to be successful, it also has to be extremely easy to use. So rather than having an app that someone has to go to for their secure email, or making a web skin where they're going into their browser on these devices to interface with secure mail, we actually built secure mail into the native client on the device. So if you're using an Android or an iPad or an iPhone, and right in the email workflow of the device, after you create the message, you look at it, you say, that contains a Social Security number or an account number. That should go secure. At that point, you select I want it to go secure. But it's built into the email flow, and that way, if you know how to use the email of the device, you know how to use secure mail on it as well.
Michael?
Yeah, I think that mobile devices are increasingly going to become a critical requirement for encrypted email. As Bob mentioned, people like to use mobile devices, and we're seeing in our own research that a lot of people will check their work-related email, for example, on their smartphone as their primary device for doing that, and they're going to be doing banking on it. I mean, we're seeing TV ads about doing banking with mobile devices and so forth. So it really is a critical issue.
Okay. We do have one question, another question that's come up. It's a question relating to, I guess, awareness of consumers out there, non-technical consumers. How much awareness do you see among consumers about the awareness of whether email is secured or non-secured emails and transactions? There was a question relating to this, and then the polling that you had done, Michael.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're going to get a lot of variability in terms of the audience for a specific bank, for example, because there's two real issues here. One, I mean, if you're dealing with techies, if you're dealing with people who are working in IT and so forth, they are going to understand the difference between encrypted and unencrypted email and how their sensitive data can be exposed. So I think certainly there can be wide variability based on the particular demographics of a bank, and you'll have some banks with customers who really aren't very technically savvy and probably never would use encrypted email even if it was available. But I think as the workforce gets more attuned to the need for encryption at work, they're going to start demanding that in the consumer space as well. One of the things we find is that there's a real, we've all heard the term the consumerization of IT. People are used to having abilities at home that they'd like to bring into work, but it also flows the other way too. And as organizations become more aware of encrypted email and telling employees, not to send stuff in clear text, that's going to filter down to individuals. Okay.
Bob, do you want to add to that at all? Or?
Well, I think that as you target a younger and younger audience, the Facebook generation, they're so aware of privacy, and they're a little bit more in tune with the various at least privacy issues. So, I mean, even for myself, today I just got an email from my broker that said that some 401k funds were transferred to my private account or to my IRA, and they listed the exact amount in a regular email. And if they're doing that with all their customers, it kind of gives me pause as to how much do they really value my relationship, and are they keeping my information safe? You're constantly reading about different breaches, and they're putting a breach right in front of you. So I think that a younger audience is going to. Unfortunately, I'm not as young as I'd like to be anymore, but that younger audience definitely, I think, is going to be more security aware.
Okay. We have another question coming in, Bob. This would probably be a question for you. What is the turnaround time for a email encryption system to become fully operational once a bank has signed a contract with a vendor?
Well, the SaaS is self-service. So once the account's provisioned, which is within an hour, the users can begin logging in, and they can use it through the web portal, or if they want to download the Send Secure button for Outlook, that's just a little Windows installer that they click next a couple times, and it's in Outlook. If it's a little bigger bank, the admin would download a copy and push it out with software distribution. That would take a little longer on their side. But in general, because it's SaaS, it's up and running, within an hour.
We have another question. This is probably for you, Bob, a technical question. What's the difference between encrypted email versus password-protected files?
Sure. So if I were to password-protect a doc file and try to send it to you, I'd have to contact you to let you know what the password is. And if you're using, Google Docs or something else, Google Apps, who knows if that'll open it or not. Or if I do zip, like PK or like the zip built into Windows, let's say, that doesn't comply. The algorithm doesn't comply with privacy requirements. It's not a strong encryption algorithm. you actually have to buy WinZip, their commercial version, in order to get the algorithm that's privacy compliant. So there's two aspects then, I guess. One is you have to coordinate the password ahead of time with the other party, and then also, are you, even with the password, are you still privacy compliant, or is it just smoke and mirrors, and if you were audited, you'd still be fined?
We have another question coming in. In your experience, what is the biggest mistake you see organizations making when they're implementing email encryption? And then also the reverse, they're asking, what is the most important thing that a community bank can do to ensure its email encryption project is a successful one?
On the first part, I think the biggest mistake they do is they don't look at it as strategic. They like, for instance, they may have an antivirus or anti-spam gateway, and then that vendor says, we'll add another module to it and give you email encryption. So from a compliance perspective, they can hit a checkbox and say, we have encryption, we satisfied our auditor's request. But the survey results show that the most important thing is the recipient experience and that ease of use. Gateways are good for just processing something and turning it around, spitting it out. But an email system is actually an ecosystem, and to make it support mobile devices, to give the user an ease of use experience, it's much more than what a gateway can offer. So I think probably the biggest mistake is just making it as this tactical, non-strategic thing of let's put it on a gateway and we're done, but then the users don't use it, so they didn't really get anywhere. Now, the other part of that question, can you repeat that, Tim?
What are the steps that a community bank can take to make sure that an email encryption project that they're undertaking is going to be a successful one?
Well, for one, you have to work backwards and say, is it going to be easy enough to use?
Yeah.
And try it out on partners, try it out on people that aren't technical, which is most of the target population. Make sure they can use it. Then, from there, look, does your IT policy allow you to run it on a SaaS, or do you have to bring it in-house?
Mm-hmm.
You need to make those decisions. You have to make sure that when you implement this type of thing, that it has the security to comply with the regulations that you're trying to meet. It's a pretty big question, but those are three main areas. Is it easy enough to get used? How are you going to run it in the cloud or on premise? Whatever. So it's a longer answer than just what I can give right here.
Okay. We have another question coming in. How does email encryption help to alleviate the problem with a message being sent to the wrong address?
Sure. When you have a web pickup method, what that means is the encrypted email will be on a staged web server, like an inbox, waiting for the recipient. They get an email and a link to come back to that message to open it, kind of like a greeting card, except instead of coming back to one message, it comes back to an inbox of all their messages. That's called a web pull delivery. And in that method, at least in our system, I assume other systems can do this as well, the sender can retract the message before the recipient actually opened it. So whereas unlike in Outlook, when you send something in standard mail, once it's gone, it's gone. You can ask the recipient to retract it, but it's not really absolute. In this case, through secure mail, you can retract it up to the point that they open the message.
Okay. Related to that, we have another question talking about the ease of use for these systems. Most technological systems seem difficult for the average non-technical user to use. Maybe you could describe the user experience for the customer for these email encryption systems.
Right. Well, I agree. We always target the non-technical user. Besides banking, another one of our target markets is healthcare, and the main consumers of healthcare are older people that are the least technically savvy. So, we try to set the bar to be the least technical as possible. So, as far as what the CEO would experience, he would have a button in Outlook that would sit next to the send button called Send Secure. And if the message should go standard, they click Send. If it should go secure, they click Send Secure. There's no keys to exchange, no certificates. no passwords like a file attachment password that you have to share with the recipient. Just click the button. But now the other thing that we also have is a content filter that sits behind the mail server, and that can look for sensitive information. It can look for Social Security numbers, account numbers. It can actually look for a live list of policy or account numbers. So instead of guessing that any 9-digit number can be one of your organization's account numbers, it could actually look at a live list of, let's say, 100,000 account numbers and say, I found an exact match. So if it's an exact match, send it secure automatically. So from a CEO's perspective, they can either click the Send Secure button if they think about it, or if they don't even want to deal with that, they click Send. The content filter will send it securely on their behalf. Now, any replies that come back into the organization will be securely delivered back to the organization's mail server in the clear. And in the clear means you can read it like a standard email. The replies will come back into the CEO's inbox like a standard message. And there's nothing that the CEO would have to do to read the message other than just read it in Outlook.
We have a question here asking about the size limits of emails sent through the data motion system. Are there attachment size or storage size limits?
Sure. So there's two aspects to this. One is if you use the button from Outlook, the size will be governed by the maximum message that your mail server can handle, whether it's 10 meg or 20 meg, something like that. If you use the web interface, the webmail interface for secure mail, the account can be configured up to 2 gigabytes. So you really don't have to go to an external file transfer solution or such. You just type in the email address of where it's supposed to go, attach a 400 meg file, click to Send Secure, and it's gone.
Here's a related question. What are the steps that we can take to ensure our system for encrypting email will handle our bank's volume of email growth as our bank continues to grow?
Sure. Well, one of the things is that not every message is sent secure. So there's a fraction of messages that need to go out in an encrypted way. So the secure system will typically be smaller than the same-sized Exchange server to handle those number of users. But what a lot of companies are doing now is they're not even running anything on-premise. They're just using the SaaS. The SaaS is basically dial on demand. So as volume is sent through the SaaS scales out to handle more volume. And so from that perspective, by implementing a SaaS solution, your scalability problem basically is no more.
Okay. We have a related question to the cloud. We have a bank that's concerned about the security of the cloud. What can a bank do to make sure that the cloud is also safe for email?
Sure. Well, that's a very, very legitimate concern. I mean, there are so many things, so many systems that are not protected today. Where you just couldn't believe it. Where passwords are not stored with one-way hashes, where sensitive information is stored in ways that if you just get the database, you get that information. So we completely hear you on that one. Since '99, when we've been selling secure email, a lot of those systems have gone on-premise in some of the largest financial firms in the world. And in order to get into those data centers, they have to go through the data center's security scrutiny. So in terms of encryption algorithms, in terms of layers of defense, meaning that you can't get to the data directly, you have to ask the system permission for the data, and then even then the data is encrypted. In terms of one-way algorithms for passwords so that they can't get, even if you got to the password database, it couldn't be reversed. There are numerous things that are considered security best practices that are in our DataMotion Secure Mail. Whether you run it on the on-premise version or you run it in the cloud version, it's the exact same code base. So, we have some papers on the security of the system. It's considered an extreme example of best security practices.
Okay. We have another question from a bank here. Any ideas on what they should look for when they're evaluating an email encryption system when they're out there looking for reviewing systems from different vendors?
Sure. Well, one definitely is the end user experience. We've seen some systems that make the end users go through hoops, for instance, if they are looking at it on a mobile device. Mm-hmm. You have to mail it over to here, wait for a link, come back and forth. The experience is just terrible, so it's not going to get used. Unfortunately, that's more typical than you could imagine. But the ease of use is very important. The other thing is if secure email is done right, it really is a strategic asset for the organization. It's not a point solution. You don't need another solution that asks end users for different names and passwords that they have to remember. It should be used for many more types of secure collaboration than just this encrypted email message. And so what I mean by that is take a look to see if the system, if you in the future want to deliver statements electronically, can that secure email solution handle automated feeds of statements? And one of the things that's popular is, with our solution, is for every statement that's opened, we just save that bank $1 and change. What's $1.15 is what the total cost of print stuff and mail is. Okay. But we give a report back to the bank of which weren't opened. So then if they feel it's important to still get the information to their customer, they can only print and mail those statements or those documents which were not opened. So out of $100,000 a month that they may have to do, let's just say half were open for round numbers, they save over $50,000 a month, and our system returns in a parsable report, the documents that they actually have to print. So very quick return on investment. There's a lot of headroom in a secure email system if it's looked at from a strategic perspective, and you really want to look to see what else can it do. Like for instance, ours can transfer files up to 2 gig. Ours also has a secure FTP interface as well, so if you had a system that needed to push something out that normally was in the file world, it can automatically bridge to someone who can get it through a web portal. So secure email is really evolving, and it's blurring the lines between just secure email. It's also blurring the lines to file transfer as well.
Okay. We have another question that's come in. Why use email encryption instead of certificates for securing email?
Sure, I'll take that one.
Okay.
I think RSA's patents are they're good for about 17 years, and RSA's patent for S-MIME already expired, which means it's been out for 17 years at least.
Okay.
And how many people are doing S-MIME today? Really not many. In the early days of computing, you could say those were the technology implementers or the innovators. Those were the more technical people. They didn't even get on the bandwagon with certificates. Now, as we're moving through the adoption curve of non-technical people, certificates are just completely out of the question from a technology and a coordination perspective, especially when you're talking about the explosion of devices that people use to access the Internet, whether it's my Google TV or my Android or my iPhone, which I don't even know how to put a cert on there. So the devices are getting more varied, and the level of technical savviness of the user is decreasing, which is really going against the sweet spot of certificates.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. We have another question coming in, a lot of technical questions. Do you suggest not requiring the end user to have a username and password to retrieve the encrypted email?
Well, from an employee's perspective, from an internal perspective, the secure messages will be delivered back in the clear over a secure or a TLS connection. So employees won't have to do anything. They just read the message in their inbox. From an external perspective, when a customer gets a message, they need to authenticate in some way. And so whether it's with a password that they know, there needs to be something that raises the bar to say this is secure, whereas if someone else were to intercept it, they wouldn't know that information. So there are fundamental things that are required with security. A password and username are kind of the basis of that. Now, one of the things that is important to educate the consumer is that with the data motion secure mail, you'll always get a green bar or a validated SSL certificate on top. So to never open a message unless you see that green bar. that means it's a validated site, that it has it's been validated by the certificate authority. And so there's certain things you can do that will minimize the phishing risk. There's also a whole other way to deliver secure mail besides having the recipient go to the portal, and that's called push delivery, where we can actually package the message and attachments inside of a PDF with the user's password, and that's pushed right into their inbox. So they open it using an Acrobat Reader or any PDF viewer on their machine. They type in the password, and the message is opened, even if they're offline from the internet. The message and the attachments are inside of that PDF. What's nice about PDF is it actually compresses everything you put in it. So in that case, a secure message is actually smaller than the same message sent via standard mail.
Kind of related to that question, we have a question that comes in talking about whether there's a need for extra licenses for end users, the customers of the banks, to use secure encrypted email systems.
Now, the secure mail is sold. The seats are based on for instance, how many desktops are going to have a Send Secure button put on them. The recipients of those users can reply for free.
Okay. Two-way encryption, here's another question. Two-way encryption, how does a client send us secure email? So I guess maybe, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's client-initiated secure mail. That's that second use case I had with the Federal Credit Union. Okay. And basically what that is a link on their website which points to our SAS. So they don't have to add anything other than a link. But our website is coded to look like, it has the same look and feel as their website. The co-brand is the same. Okay. When the user clicks on the link that says "securely contact us," let's say on the About Us or on the client contact page on the bank's website, when they click on that link, it comes to our secure contact page, which is basically an email page. It has it prompts for the user's from address, the subject, the body, and allows them to attach documents. Then provides a Send Secure button that allows them to initiate a secure message back to the bank. So right from the public-facing website of the financial institution, users can click the link and initiate the message coming back into an internal department or employee. Now, Secure Contact has a drop-down on the To field. It can be to help desk, to 401k planning, to retire, whatever. So you can the customer can route it based on their request to mortgage applications, for instance. They don't have to know the email address. That's pre-populated. But in any case, there's no cost, to the website visitor to initiate that secure message.
Okay. Well, our time is getting close to ending here. I apologize if someone has a question that we weren't able to get to answer today during the live broadcast. Bob or Michael will certainly be happy to answer any questions after the webinar, so feel free to contact them. I'd like to thank Bob Osterman and Mike Janicek again for their presentations today. I thought they were very good. And appreciate your time, and look for the recorded version of the website of the webinar on the ICBA and ICBA Independent Banker websites. Take care, and thanks for signing in.